The Greens have won their first lower house seat of the election campaign, but 9 seats remain too close to call. Let's bring in our chief election analyst, Connell. Tom, take us through the tallies and some of the high-profile contests that remain.
Yeah, well, let's begin on where we're at last election to this election. Of course, we know Labor's big increase. We know the coalition's drop. Also keeping a watch, though, on the crossbench. The Greens at 4, Climate or Community Independence on 6. So as we go to the live count now, the Greens on 1, but it's 1 more than they started the day on. That is where they'll stay. They're not in contention in any other seats. Climate 200 are in contention to still get to 6 seats, maybe even 7, or they could stay on 4. That's how close some of those seats are. We go to Queensland, though. This is 2022. Ryan, Brisbane, Griffith. The Greens won all of those seats in somewhat of an upset. We go to 2025. 2 red, 1 green. This will stay green. Ignore the two-party preferred. What we want to look at here is the primary vote. What it shows is the Greens have to stay ahead of Labor. Now, on these votes alone, we'll go to the actual number to get an idea. That's not a very big gap, 500 votes. But we do have, from the Electoral Commission, what's called the 3-candidate preferred. So they count out all the rest of this vote here. Jared Rennick, One Nation, Trumpet of Patriots, etc. And as that progresses, the Greens actually are in the lead compared to Labor of 1,600 votes. Now, with the vote to go, it does include some postal, which is worse for the Greens, but then absent, which will be better. Labor won't make that vote up. Therefore, we are saying the Greens win that seat. So they will finish 2nd overall, and that means they get help from Labor's preferences to defeat the LNP. That gap is easily overcome because those Labor preferences flow really strongly at about 80%. Right, the other ones that are really, really close right now, Bradfield. Now, without going into all the detail here, here's what you need to know. Two-party preferred. The gap here right now is actually towards the Liberal Party, 210 votes. What happens from here? Some postal vote, very little is left. Then there'll be some absent, both on the day and before the election. I've projected the rest of the postal and the absent vote to flow along the same way as it did last time. How does this end up? I have this at the end of all that being 180 votes to the Liberal Party. So on the last postals, that's tightened a little bit. I was saying 230 earlier in the day. In other words, it's too close because there are thousands of absent votes. If they go a little bit differently to how we're expecting, that seat can flip. So that's Bradfield. Kooyong's a very similar scenario as well. We'll go to Kooyong and similar sort of maths here. What right now is the margin? Well, this is similar, but a better situation for Monique Ryan to be in. Last night, there was a couple of errors which gave her 300 more net votes. Her lead's now 700. There's more postal left in this seat. My projections here overall is what we'll get after the postals is Amelia Heyman will just get into the lead, but that's not assured. That's only if they flow at about 60. Some of them have been coming in lower than that. If they flow at that rate, Monique Ryan wins by 160. If the absence flow as I expect as well. So we're getting all these votes in. We're having the best guess at how they flow. Monique Ryan by 160. In other words, again, too close. I'd still rather be Monique Ryan because there's a chance those postals drop off in terms of how strongly they flow for the Liberal Party. And that would mean we'd be projecting Monique Ryan to have a bigger lead and look a bit safer. Still too close on that front. The other one here in Canberra, Kieran, is the seat Bean. We don't have a contest to compare this to because suddenly it's Labor against the Climate 200 candidate and getting help from Liberal preferences. So what's happening right now, because they had to restart this count, look how close that is, 50.01. So at the moment, that's actually tightened since I've had a look, 22 votes, because we've seen Jessie Price go in the lead. See where the two-party preferred candidate is, 86. Let's see if the primary is still a little bit ahead of that. OK, it's now caught up. So she is now in the lead by that bare possible amount. What happens from here? There is some postal. That hasn't really favoured either side right now. Unlike some of these other areas, the postal in at the moment is basically splitting 50-50. Look at that, 50.03. So that's not going to decide the contest. What happens to the absent vote is somewhat of an unknown. Absent will likely go better for Labor on the primary, worse for the Libs, but maybe better for the independent. So when we're looking at the overall mix of votes, basically, who knows? We haven't seen the contests. We don't know how the absence is flowing. There could even be a bit of vote coming in as well from Norfolk Island. There's a pre-poll booth that hasn't come. That'll probably give another 100 votes to the independent, which at this stage could be significant. So
that is unbelievable.
All eyes on Norfolk Island, perhaps, Kieran.
All eyes on, yeah, exactly. And that from the tariffs to the election, Norfolk Island's been in the headlines, isn't it? But 20 votes, that is so close. You know, just reflecting back on the Bradfield vote, I was thinking Paul Fletcher he was vindicated in his decision to tap the mat, because if it was Fletcher v Buller, I would say that result wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as close. That having a young woman there
Next
versus
generation.
the Teal, next generation, it's made them competitive and maybe hold on to the seat. So you've got to reflect on Paul Fletcher's contribution to that, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess we never know the counterfactual, but I think it's fair to say, and you're not alone in saying that. I might show you the ones that are too close overall right now. We've done Bean, Bullwinkle. All we have left there basically is absent. Look at the margin again, 0.09. We don't have that absent vote. I've heard different theories on it being FIFO workers maybe, or students. I'd rather be Labor, because absent usually favour them. It's a Labor-Liberal contest. But with no trend, I don't want to talk about it, or predict it, I should say. Bradfield we've done. Longman is really close. Again, the projection on there is within about 100, 150 votes. That's a Liberal-Labor contest. And then we go over here. Bendigo, at the moment, I think Labor are in a better position, but we want to see how absent flow, but I would have them as the favourite to win that. And Caldwell's worth a look. So Caldwell, Flinders and Monash, Kieran, we don't know who the final two are going to be. Flinders, I think, at the moment, Zoe McKenzie is favourite to win that seat. I think she'll end up with enough of a buffer, and we don't even know if the independent gets to the final two. But I want to give you an example of how complicated some of this has been. So Caldwell, who finishes second there? Good luck predicting that. The Liberal Party will not get as good a preference flow, but these two independents, neck and neck, and that's assuming they can get over the line against the Liberal Party to finish second. So the AEC at the moment is not even doing a 3-candidate referred. They're just counting every vote as they come in, and probably by the end of the election, Friday next week, when they're getting postals, then they'll try to figure out who on earth's come second. If it's one of these independents and we get a strong enough flow, say for Carly Moore, she could then knock off the Labor Party, but that's an equation we don't even know. So it's lucky we're not relying on Caldwell to call the election, Kieran. Who knows at this point? I'm confident to say that nobody knows who's going to win this seat.
That is a very good point. Luckily, we're not relying on that. But as you said, the Greens, not a great result for them. Certainly in the lower house, it's been a shocker. They've held on to one seat.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that.